Of course, we've had a few days of freedom here in Sydney. There is optimism in the air. How much of the recovery really does rely on the ability of international tourists to return?
Oh, look, that's absolutely critical. Around Australia, our tourism industry has been absolutely flattened in the pandemic. The critical thing now is to see a pathway to begin to open up. We have the first signs of that, so certainly a move to allow Australian citizens to come back in the coming weeks, either with no quarantine or minimal quarantine. This is the first step. I think we saw on Friday the New South Wales Premier signalling his preparedness to scrap quarantine altogether. I think that's a step we will have to get to at some point in the coming months. But look, the first step is essential, and that is moving to more flexible systems of quarantine, opening up to Australians who are overseas more rapidly, getting them back more rapidly, and then very quickly opening up to tourists, to international students, and to skilled migrants. These are all critical areas for business.
How damaging will it be to not have that piece of the Chinese consumer, the Chinese traveller?
Well, look, these are all important markets. At the moment, it is essential that we find a pathway to open up. A first step with countries like Singapore will be very valuable, but there are many important markets, China, Korea, Japan, India, all of these markets which we have to get access to in the coming months. We have to find a pathway to do that. That's absolutely essential from here.
How are businesses dealing with the lack of foreign labour? Is this an issue?
Look, absolutely. Skills shortages at the moment in the Australian economy are as severe as they have been in the past 2 decades. It's right across really all sectors, a huge number of trades and professions. So whether that's the health sector, which is an obvious one, teaching, IT jobs, engineering jobs, construction jobs, all of these areas, mechanical engineers, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, there's a lot of areas where we do have shortages at the moment. Really, the only way to begin to address that rapidly will be to have access to skilled migrants. Normally, in the past few years, that's been about 120,000 people a year coming in. We need more than that in the next few years.
As Australia is now edging closer to reopening, what does that mean for COVID payments to support not only businesses but also individuals? How should those be phased out?
Well, look, clearly, if the economy bounces back strongly, then it will be possible to phase those out. I think what we would say is, given the uncertainties in timing here, this should be done gradually. We don't want to chop business off at the knees. You can't just flick a switch and restart. So we're starting to see opening up in New South Wales, ACT, Victoria. But look, that may take some weeks for businesses to get back on their feet and to get staff back in and to get fully open. So I think we've just got to take it gradually. We don't want to make it more difficult than it needs to be. So I think, take it one step at a time.
Andrew, is there adequate preparation for how businesses and services should be handling this new phase of the reopening? Because if you take a look at the case numbers that we see in the UK, for example, large parts of the US, we know that there probably will be a surge even with higher levels of vaccination. Are businesses prepared with a blueprint as to how they should react to that?
Well, look, I think many businesses have been preparing. They are very keen to get open again. And look, all the signs are that there is, quite good resilience there across most of the business sector. But of course, the more time they've got to plan, the more flexibility. I think one has to understand here that it's really, reasonable endeavours from businesses' point of view to work with the rules that are in place. I think if we can have a common set of rules as much as possible across different states, this will help as well. So, government coordinating with business, trying to work with a more or less similar plan across the country. All of these things will help with the reopening to make that more rapid, to make it smoother for business, and to get people back to work, back in the shops, going about their business before the end of the year.
You talk about across the country, across different states. We're in the situation where we probably will be able to go to London or LA or New York before we can get to WA or Queensland, right? Do you think it's time to start thinking about opening domestic borders? And how does that potentially happen given the divisions that we see in how COVID and Delta is handled?
Well, of course, that has to happen. But I mean, clearly, those states, whether it's Queensland, Western Australia, South Australia, Tasmania, they have to continue to boost their vaccination rates. So we understand that that's important. There's, I think, now been enough time for that to occur. We've seen how it's accelerated in New South Wales. We've seen how it's accelerating in Victoria. Let's not be complacent. We really have to push hard to get those vaccination rates up. If we're going to manage the health impacts, I mean, COVID will get into those states at some point. It could be tomorrow, it could be next week, it could be next month. But I think the more prepared they are, then the better it will be. And don't take a day off to see how this plays out. We have to press hard and keep on going to get those vaccination rates up.